Hello, my name's Gavin, this is Genre Books, and this is the first week of Rocket Summer, a month-long reading event created by Michael K. Vaughan with the intention of delving deep into vintage science fiction. Details, co-hosts, all below. Last year, for the inaugural Rocket Summer, I concentrated on trying to get through as many novels as I could do. This year I'm concentrating much more on short stories. So it's time for me to do another Project Gutenberg expose. As it really is Project Gutenberg that got me into reading the old pulp literature. I was searching for some things on Gutenberg and realised all of these old stories, from amazing stories, astounding stories, planet stories, galaxy, all of those old pulps and digests. Many of those stories available in the public domain and copyright free. For my own short story reading this Rocket Summer, I have been continuing looking at Isaac Asimov's Before the Golden Age, a selection of writers from 1931 to 35. I've also got Before the Golden Age, Volume 2. The stories in Michael Ashley's History of the Science Fiction magazine, 1926 to 1935. Fantastically covered Exploring Other Worlds, edited by Sam Moskowitz. And some stories from the Science Fiction Hall of Fame. I am, of course, also continuing my Planet Stories deep dive. But for those who want to perhaps dip their toe without dipping into their wallet, can do worse than looking at Project Gutenberg. The Science Fiction Hall of Fame has 26 stories, so my list has 27 and is considerably cheaper. The first is The Star by H.G. Wells. This came out in 1926 in Amazing Stories, although the story was first from 1897 in a periodical called The Graphic. It's an apocalypse tale as a massive object hurtles towards Earth. From 1929, Clare Wager Harris from the Science Wonder Quarterly, The Artificial Man. Harris is credited as the first woman to publish under her own name in science fiction magazines. There are unfortunately less than a dozen shorts, and she stopped publishing in 1933. But The Artificial Man, available copyright free. From 1937, Edwin Baird, Anton's Last Dream. Baird is the first editor of Weird Tales, but he also turned his hand to writing on occasion. This story appeared in Weird Tales. It's easy when you're the editor too, and it concerns a scientist who has invented invisible paint. One that sounds right up my alley, and a writer who the stories of his that I've read have all been really good. Raymond Z. Gallun, Terror Out of the Past, from Amazing Stories, March 1940. This is the story of the remains of an ancient civilization which are discovered by an archaeologist. Hidden worlds, robots, armies, the works. From May 1942, in Amazing Stories, The Crystal Planetoids by Stanton A. Coblentz. Invaders from Saturn are changing the weather patterns of Earth with disastrous results. From the spring of 1947, and from my beloved Planet Stories, comes Ray Bradbury. There's not a lot of Ray Bradbury on Project Gutenberg because some writers were a bit more canny about their copyright than others. But this one I couldn't leave off the list. It forms part of the Martian Chronicles, or the Silver Locusts if you're in the UK, and it lends its name to this booktube event. Rocket Summer. Next is Pygmalion's Spectacles by Stanley G. Weinbaum. This was originally from Wonder Stories in 1935. The edition in Gutenberg is actually from a 1949 reprint, but even by the first publication in 1935, Weinbaum was already dead, having passed away at the terribly early age of 34. This is a 90-year-old story of the philosophical consideration of VR goggles. Into the 1950s now, and from the May-June edition of Future Science Fiction is the miniature Menace by Frank Belknap Long, an outer space tale where a protagonist is imprisoned for not firing on an unknown alien spacecraft. Back to Planet Stories and March 1951, Black Amazon of Mars by Lee Brackett. This is a sword and planet pulp featuring the Lee Brackett hero Eric John Stark. This story came out after Brackett's return to writing sci-fi stories. She had taken a break to go to Hollywood, where, amongst other things, she wrote the Big Sleep screenplay. She was, however, a stalwart of Planet Stories, and her science fiction bona fides continued until at the end of her life. She produced a draft of the screenplay of Empire Strikes Back. From Galaxy Fiction, so moving into the digests rather than the pure pulp, April 1951, The Marching Morons by C.M. Kornbluth. Anyone who's seen the Mike Judge film Idiocracy might recognise the premise from this story. A man is put into suspended animation in 1988 and resurrected in a future where the average IQ has dropped to 45. More post-apocalyptic tales now, with A Pail of Air by Fritz Leiber from Galaxy in December 1951. A family's struggle to survive as the Earth has been knocked out of orbit and is travelling through space as a rogue planet. Continuing with Galaxy, and from their February 1952 issue, Conditionally Human by Walter M. Miller, concerning overpopulation, which was a general concern in science fiction and in some scientific quarters at the time. But in case you think this might be all getting a little too cerebral, let's have a look at space science fiction from May 1952 and Pursuit by Lester Del Rey. In the aftermath of an alien invasion, resistance of Earthlings uncover the mystery of their enemy, the Architects. Proving that not absolutely every alien encounter has to end in fisticuffs and ray guns, we have The Stranger by Gordon R. Dickson from Imagination Stories of Science Fantasy from May 1952. This is an alien encounter where the crew of a mining ship give aid to an unknown spacecraft. From the Science Fiction Digest If from September 1952 comes The Beautiful People by Charles Beaumont. This will be familiar to any fan of The Twilight Zone. It's a science fiction stroke horror tale about notions of beauty and conformity. A very brief tale, so short describing it has the danger of spoiling it. Ask a Foolish Question by Robert Sheckley, science fiction anthology from 1953. Returning to If Worlds of Science Fiction, this time from January 1953, and returning to source material for Twilight Zone episodes, Time Enough at Last by Lynn Venable. This one particularly relevant to us book lovers. An early Philip K. Dick story from May 1953 from Space Science Fiction, Second Variety, detailing a future war and android infiltrators. Andre Norton, loved putting cats in her stories as much as possible, and this short story from Fantastic Universe Science Fiction, August to September 1953, is no different. All cats are grey. This is another very short piece where to say much about it would be again to spoil it, but we have here a female writer and, more importantly, a female protagonist, which a combination not often shown in some of these science fiction magazines. Two-Timer by Frederick Brown from Galaxy 1954 are examples of his fragmentary, almost flash fiction. Two very short pieces. Isaac Asimov is another writer who doesn't have much on Gutenberg, being a very canny businessman as well as writer. And his story here, Let's Get Together, the prequel to Al Green's Let's Stay Together, presumably, is from Infinity Science Fiction in February 1957. This is a Cold War slant on his robot universe. Jack Vance makes his first appearance on this list with The Men Return from Infinity Science Fiction in July 1957. Frederick Pohl, the agent, author, editor, and short story writer with The Knights of Arthur from Galaxy, January 1958. This is not anything to do with the Arthurian legend. This is a post-apocalyptic tale of a bullying artificial intelligence, dealt with the typical Pohl humour and pulpy brio. I couldn't have one of these lists without including Murray Leinster, and the story of his here is The Aliens from Astounding Science Fiction, August 1959. This is a first contact story, and again another science fiction first contact story which proves not all negotiations have to be conducted at the barrel of a ray gun. Moving into the 1960s for the last few stories on this list. Analog, April 1962, Harry Harrison and Toy Shop, a brief tale of a deceptively complex little gadget. David Mason next with Road Stop from If Worlds of Science Fiction, January 1963. Self-driving cars are a reality now, but were speculative fiction fodder back in 1963. Perhaps don't read science fiction about them if you use one today. And finally, for this list, Industrial Revolution by Paul Anderson from September 1963, again Analog magazine, showing the beauty of using science fiction to talk about the present or the past. And even in 1963, this story was about the past, set in a future which might be the past to us now. It all gets a little bit confusing, but that's one of the joys about retro science fiction, reading about far-flung futures of the year 2000 or the 1990s. And until next time.